Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Will, Defoe? No, Will, okay, bad joke. Will CNBC give me a copyright? Well, only one way to find out. Preemptive like, hey guys, how the UK, the United Kingdom's healthcare system works. It's a communist healthcare system. I'm joking, okay? I like to have jokes around here. That's kind of my thing. Nobody think I'm funny?
Went and the Democratic presidential race is Super Tuesday came and went, and the Democratic presidential race is narrowing to two very different candidates.
Okay, original link to the video, top of the description. Below that, link to the Discord. My name's Connor. Please don't judge me by my joke in the beginning there. And I'm quite open-minded, and I like to learn. So, and I'm so lazy, I'm just laying in bed. Let's go.
Candidates. Far-left Bernie Sanders and the more moderate Joe Biden. Biden and Sanders have clashed on the best approach to reforming U.S. healthcare. Sanders wants to get rid of private insurance altogether, while Biden proposes building on the framework left over from Barack Obama's Affordable Care Act.
Bernie says that you have to bring people together, and we have to have Medicare for all. But Bernie says, and he says he wrote the damn thing, but he's unwilling to tell us what the damn thing's going to cost. The idea middle-class taxes aren't...
I like Joe Biden. I just think he's old. And he's so, he's been in the Senate for, or like in government for so long that... But I'm not saying you should have no political experience at all, okay? But I think there is such a thing as too much political experience. I think that is not a bad. I think that's yeah. And he's
gonna
old.
go up is just crazy.
What Medicare for all will do is save the average American substantial sums of money.
The U.S. already spends more money on healthcare than any other developed country. There's one country that spends less than half what the U.S. does on healthcare, and people generally don't pay anything out of pocket when they go to the doctor. The United Kingdom. And out of all the healthcare systems we've looked at, the UK appears the most socialist. The government effectively runs the whole thing. Right now, the UK is having its own debate over how to reform the National Health Service. So how does the UK system compare to the US? And what...
All right, I have to get serious. Okay, come on. Okay, I'm ready to learn.
Reforms may be coming. In 2018, the United States spent around $10,500 US on healthcare for each of its residents. The United Kingdom spent around $4,000 US. That means the United Kingdom spends 9.8% of its GDP on healthcare, while the US spends 16.9%. Despite spending less, the United Kingdom manages to have healthier citizens who live longer and are less likely to die in childbirth.
A question, is Ireland very similar to the UK, or in terms of healthcare? Or...
In 2017, life expectancy in the UK was 2.7 years higher than in the US. And the UK has roughly 1.5 times fewer deaths that could have been avoided by access to better healthcare. The infant mortality rate is lower in the United Kingdom, with 3.9 deaths per 1,000 live births, as opposed to 5.8 in the United States. And the maternal mortality rate in the US is nearly 1.5 times higher than in the United Kingdom. So how is the UK system structured so that it gets these results while spending significantly less than the United States system?
The National Health Service is a case where the British decided right after World War II that healthcare should be government's job, like paving the streets, putting out fires, running the library, running the parks.
That's T.R. Reid, author of the book The Healing of America. He traveled the world exploring different countries' healthcare systems.
It's a service you get when you need it, and you never get a bill. It's like going to the library. They don't charge you to check out a book.
Key thing about the NHS is it's a risk-sharing system. So everyone pays into it through their tax. If you need to use it, you don't have to pay anything else. So in a sense, it's not free because it's paid out of taxation.
Dr. John Pun.
Okay. I've brought up this a couple of times, and I still sort of stand by it. It's not that I stand by it; it's that I stand by that I haven't been swayed enough to think. Anyways, this is my point. So I know they were using per capita statistics. Please, guys, this is a subject that people freak out in the comments when I say stuff, all right? The communism jokes aside, okay? I seriously wonder this. It was using per capita statistics, I get it, but in a large country like the US, I think it is much more difficult to implement this sort of thing in a successful way with a much larger population like the US has. And I'm posing that as a question I have, and let me know if you think I'm wrong. But I don't think it's necessarily fair to compare the UK to the US and say, look at the UK, look at how much better their healthcare is, which I agree it is better. It seems to be much better from what I've learned through these videos. And, but I don't think it's complete fair comparison to a very big country like the US, where people need to be on the same track in a system like this. It's very different in the US. That's not the only thing, okay? And I can be proven wrong, you guys. I'm just posing that as it's a thought I have.
Pontus is a pediatrician who
Can't
recently
believe how much I have to say. Easy, easy. I'm not saying that this is the right way. I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong. I can't believe how much I have to say that, but I do in today's...
Retired from the NHS. He is also co-chair of an...
In a sense, it's not free because it's paid out of taxation.
Dr. John Pontus is a pediatrician who recently retired from the NHS. He is also co-chair of an organization called Keep Our NHS Public. All of his comments are reflective of the organization and not his personal views.
It's a fair system in that the more money you earn, the more tax you pay, and the more you contribute. But there has been discussion about whether tax should be increased to pay for sorting the NHS out in terms of the current deficiencies and problems, and that is controversial. I think a lot of people favour some tax increase, but then there are other people who say, well, maybe the focus should be on companies that don't pay tax and people that aren't paying tax as the first step.
I would call that socialized medicine. Government provides the care. Government pays for the care. It's paid for through taxes. Everybody's covered the same. To me, that sounds like socialized medicine.
The term socialized medicine has become a political football, especially in the United States.
If the NHS, if that's socialised medicine, it's great. And we hear this term mainly coming from the US, where it's used as for scaremongering. I would say if the NHS is socialised medicine, we like it, and most people are still very, very supportive of the concept of a national health service.
Each of the UK's 4 constituent countries have their own branch of the NHS, so rules differ slightly between them, but all of the branches operate under the purview of the UK Parliament. There are some services that require patients to pay something out of pocket, such as dental, eye care, and certain prescription drugs, but those fees are low compared to the US and vary by NHS branch. By one estimate from a data analytics firm, prescription drugs cost 57% less in the UK than they do in the US. Unlike with other universal healthcare systems that are only publicly funded, the government also runs the NHS. That means doctors that...
Question, guys. So when I've been on Medicaid, I'm about to be kicked off of Medicaid, but thankfully because I've been making more money, and so it's fine. But I've been on Medicaid for like 8 years, where because I made below a certain threshold, it's like I don't know exactly what it is, maybe $20,000 a year or something like that. I'm not sure, maybe 30,000. But where where you get Medicaid and you get your prescriptions for free. It doesn't mean all your doctor visits are for free, but in my case, I've been taking prescriptions for a while. An antidepressant, a Ritalin prescription, which is like an Adderall, and a Xanax, which is for like treatment of anxiety. I've had those 3 prescriptions for going on a decade now, even more for the Adderall and Xanax, I think. And I've gotten them free every time since I've been on Medicaid. And so it's not like if you're like really poor in the U.S. I hesitate to say this certainly, but if you're very poor in the U.S., you can easily sign up for Medicaid and not get charged anything for prescriptions. Please let me know if I'm wrong. Any Americans?
Percent less in the UK than they
anyone?
do in the US. Unlike with other universal healthcare systems that are only publicly funded, the government also runs the NHS. That means doctors that work in public NHS facilities are employees of the government. Most Britons receive their primary care through general practitioners, who are frequently referred to as GPs. They typically act as gatekeepers for secondary care.
The problems that people are experiencing at the moment is it's taking longer to see your general practitioner if you want to see them.
Most GPs are private contractors with the NHS. They don't charge patients for care. Instead, they earn money directly from the National Health Service. Many GPs negotiate contracts with the NHS to determine how much they can charge the government for their services. GPs may fund their own general practice facilities, or they can rent them from the NHS or private companies. One paper from the Journal of...
That's another big question I have. Maybe it's going to be answered. But once you get from a non-universal healthcare system like we have in the U.S. to a universal healthcare system, and this is going to sound kind of bad or evil in some sense, but it's a real question after that. But once you make it universal healthcare, you know, the U.S. has 330 to 350 million people. And you get universal healthcare where visits are no money. You feel a little bit sick, go to the doctor without a question. And worst case scenario, you're completely fine. You didn't even have to come in. And off you go, right? And so not only are you going to make it so that any minor ailment at all that you fear or that you feel or might be afraid of or think you have, is you're going to be able to go to a doctor's visit. And so why is that a bad thing? Well, you're also going to get so many more people on top of the fact that people want to go more often. And so, but you're still going to have the same amount of doctors and physicians as before it. And so you're going to like quintuple the amount of times that doctors are going to see patients because of how cheap it is. And then the more people are going to be able to go. I'm not saying that, you know, that obviously that's not a bad thing. Everyone being able to access a doctor, that's not a bad thing. But a bad consequence of it is that how are doctors going to have time to meet with you when they have 50 other people in front of you or someone who like didn't feel well here? And so I'm not saying it's a good thing that because healthcare is so expensive in the US that people hesitate to seek care and then end up in unnecessary deaths. I had an uncle. I still have uncles, but I had an uncle who died from lung cancer a few years ago. And I think part of why it wasn't caught earlier was because healthcare is expensive, and not everyone can just go whenever they want. And if they caught the cancer earlier, he might have still been around. Rest in peace, Kevin. And so I understand that, and I get that emotional, you know, my God, if healthcare was free, then so many things would be preventable. But you're going to make it so when you want to sign up for a doctor's appointment, it's going to be very less convenient for a lot of people. Yes, but it will allow more people to be able to see it. The line's going to grow immensely large.
Of the Royal Society of Medicine found that GPs face many issues because of how general practices are funded in the UK.
Some GPs, I think increasingly, don't want to take on the running a business aspect of general practice. And so there are lots of GPs who are salaried partners, so they are paid by the practice to come in and work as a GP, but they don't do any of the business side of the stuff.
There's also a private sector in the UK's healthcare system. It's funded from a combination of out-of-pocket payments, private health insurance, and the NHS itself.
The private sector is growing because it's being consciously promoted by government, and the boundaries being blurred.
Well, I think that private
You guys, I just missed the past like 30 seconds. I'm going back, okay?
Paid by the practice.
You can skip ahead if you want.
Come in and work salarial practice. Don't want to take on the running a business aspect of general practice. And so there are lots of GPs who are salaried partners, so they are paid by the practice to come in and work as a GP, but they don't do any of the business side of the stuff.
There's also a private sector in the UK's healthcare system. It's funded from a combination of out-of-pocket payments, private health insurance, and the NHS itself.
The private sector is growing because it's being consciously promoted by government, and the boundaries being blurred.
Well, I think that private healthcare has been growing at a very rapid, steady pace in the United Kingdom for the course of several decades. That's going to continue.
That's Niall Gardner. He's the director of the Thatcher Centre for Freedom at the Heritage Foundation.
With regard to the National Health Service, I mean, there's no sign at this stage that the UK will be moving to a different system to the National Health Service. All British parties are committed to the National Health Service. I think that more and more Britons will be opting for private healthcare in the coming years and decades, not least because there are long waiting lists with regard to the National Health Service.
An analysis from the London School of Economics found that in the 2018 to 2019 fiscal year, NHS England spent around 18% of its total expenditure on the independent sector.
So when you said that, you know, the waiting, and so sorry, there was a spider that was crawling on the table right here, and I just picked him up and put him outside. Okay, where was I? Something.
England spent around 18% of its total expenditure on the independent sector.
There's been a blurring of the boundaries, if you like. For example, cataract surgery, which is the most common operation done under the NHS. Increasingly, it's being provided in the...
Isn't that done by, like, sucking a needle? Ugh. I'm assuming that they have different practices now. Okay.
Independent sector, and the NHS has contracts with the independent sector to do that work. There are implications in terms of staffing. Private sector doesn't train its own staff, it takes it from the NHS. It cherry picks, takes the low risk patients, not the high risk patients. It has an impact on training NHS staff, and this is one of the problems with cataract surgery. If they're all going to the private sector hospitals, then the NHS staff don't become experienced in doing cataract surgery, and then along the line you find it's more difficult to staff your NHS unit. So it's not without negative consequences.
Pausing again. This is the thing that federal programs always make me hesitant about. If there's one thing about capitalism and free market that is extremely good, that is better than any system we've tried, it's that competition and competition creates optimal competition, and capitalist free markets make optimal conditions and skilled people and passionate, I think passionate or competent, skilled people, innovation, and you know, larger salaries for doctors and everything. All of this comes because the great thing about capitalism is that it relies on greed, which is just such a ingrained thing in most. It makes it so you survive or die, and so the best are the ones that survive, and so that's why you have such amazing hospitals and doctors get paid so much, is because in essence hospitals are businesses, and people, I think, assume that government controlled businesses like a hospital are going to be just as efficient, or government-controlled hospitals are going to be just as efficient as the ones we see in privately held, profit-motivated hospitals. And I think that disagree with me, please. I'd love to see disagreements in the comment section. I'm already going to get so much hate. I'm pretty much just saying what I think now. Yeah, I think that's one thing that government can never do, what a free market can in providing quality service. Maybe not quantity service. Government's better at quantity service to everyone, but it's not better at quality.
We are paying private companies increasingly to do work for the NHS, including American companies, and they're very well established now, particularly in back office functions and providing advice on commissioning support, this kind of thing. They're very involved, and unfortunately that's likely to increase, and it's something which campaigners are extremely worried about.
I don't think anyone really believed that UK voters would decide to Brexit.
The news that the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union shocked the world. The NHS was a big part of the Brexit media discourse, with the Leave campaign famously claiming that the UK would take back £350 million a week that could then be funneled into the NHS. The UK Statistics Authority has since said that the claim is a, quote, clear misuse of official statistics.
My name is Holly Jarman. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Health Management and Policy at the University of Michigan. Those promises really did hit home for a lot of people. The idea that money would come back from Europe to the UK was a very powerful symbol. It's not actually true. That wasn't really how EU financing works. But we still saw that was a big part of the media discourse and most likely part of people's judgment when they were casting their vote.
The UK officially left the EU 3 years after the original Brexit vote, entering a transitory period through the end of 2020 while the UK government...
I remember that. I don't know a ton about, the Brexit, non-Brexit. I'm kind of what's it called? What's the word? Ambivalent? Like it's not my business. You guys chose to do a thing, and that's your choice, and I'll support that. Oh my God, people are gonna yell at me. Waiting Discord. Well, I forget what I was even gonna say.
Negotiate vote, entering a transitory...
Oh yeah, Brexit. But I do remember that when it was on the news, like for years. I just remember it being like, wait, what? Like, I remember the announcement, oh, they voted Brexit, and it was this huge thing. And I just remember month after month, year after year. It's like, Brexit, to happen. I'm like, it hasn't happened yet? That took so long, but it's complicated. I get it.
Period through the end of 2020 while the UK government negotiates international trade deals. The concerns about private American corporations engaging more with the NHS came up during the discussion of the post-Brexit trade talks with the United States.
When you're dealing in trade, everything's on the table. So NHS or anything else, or a lot more than that.
Backlash to President Trump's comments on the NHS.
Oi, Trump,
or anything else, or a lot more than that.
Off our NHS.
Backlash to President Trump's comments on the NHS led to many British politicians assuring their constituents that the NHS was not going to be a part of the trade talks.
The NHS is in no way on the table.
Why would it? How is it our business to tell them what their healthcare is, what your health?
Trump then backtracked on his comments, saying he wouldn't consider the NHS as part of the trade deal.
A lot of trade negotiations are actually quite secretive by nature. The two sides don't really want to reveal a lot about what they're looking for in a deal. Our concern really as health researchers is that the NHS really won't be accounted for in that deal. That the UK government's preferences have been shown to be largely economic and not so much on focusing on the health of people in Britain.
The problem is that the NHS is already on the table. It has been for a while. But the politicians who are now going to be negotiating the trade deals, it's going to be across many fronts. Campaigners were saying, okay, put your money where your mouth is. If you're saying the NHS won't be in a trade deal, then let's see legislation that sets that out so it's cast in stone, and they haven't rushed to do that.
Trade negotiations cover everything at once, and it's difficult to tell how they are going to be pushing for the liberalisation of drug regulations, and to what extent the Johnson cabinet would actually agree with any changes that would be proposed to the way the UK regulates pharmaceuticals. It's really a central government-led process that's not that democratic and does represent big business, and I think that's why a lot of people get very concerned and anxious around trade agreements.
There are some who say the NHS won't be harmed by Brexit, even in the event a trade deal with the EU isn't reached by the end of the year.
I don't expect that we're going to see huge changes actually in the Brexit era with regard to the National Health Service. And so I think with regard to the NHS, we're not likely to see a significant impact as a result of Brexit. I think the free trade deal will be largely focused upon the service industry, which of course is now the largest part of both the US and British economies.
Whatever effect the trade deals end up having on the UK, reforming the NHS will continue to be a big part of the country's political conversation.
People's support for the NHS in the UK is very strong. There's no other country that, when we hosted the Olympics in London, we had nurses jumping on beds, and the NHS was actually a part of that ceremony and a part of that national celebration. The UK's NHS is very important in British politics. It's an important symbol of Britishness in that context.
Really interesting. Can't wait to get... Look, I know I might make a lot of comments that come off as uneducated or whatever. Fine. But it's just what's in my head, and I'm going to speak my mind there, and I can always change my mind. I'm not nearly educated enough in healthcare, public or private, to have a serious opinion. And so I hope I didn't upset you. If I did upset people, then I upset people. Whatever. Love you guys. Hope you're doing well. Hope I didn't piss you off too much. And sorry for being so informal and in the bed here. But it is past 10 p.m. and yeah. Hope you're all doing well. Love you guys. See you guys next time. If you're not doing well mentally and physically, but mentally, mental health is very important to me. And if you're not feeling well, emotions are fickle, okay? You can feel great tomorrow, and feel terrible one day. You might think you'll feel like that way forever, but be happy, smile, don't worry. See you guys next time. Bye.